Okay, everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell. It is Thursday, September 12th, 2013, the year beyond Thunderdome, although they're still busily recalculating the Mayan 2012 on the old calendar. So stay tuned for that. But we have some news, and I have a bit of an announcement. And there's the announcement. Financial Vipers of Venice. I just received the complimentary copies today, so you should be able to be getting the hard copy of the book, I would imagine, 2 to 3 weeks. Um, Farrell House does things a bit differently than Adventures Unlimited. I think they actually send books directly from the printer onto the distributor, so it might actually be fairly quickly so that you can get your copies off the website. I already have it up there on the website for you. It looks real good. I haven't had time to sit down and go through it cover to cover, but I hope you enjoy the book. It's finally out. On the other front, Adventures Unlimited has let me know that Covert Wars and Clash of Civilizations is at the printer, and I guess they are rushing madly. I hope they aren't rushing too madly because I want them to do a good job with that book too. I'm kind of glad that Financial Vipers came out before Covert Wars and Clash of Civilizations. I didn't plan it that way, but as you know, all my books are kind of related. And I think you're going to discover some connections between Financial Vipers, Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, and Covert Wars and Clash of Civilizations, so read those books rather carefully. Financial Vipers is the first book in which I have actually publicly, although briefly, addressed the problem of corporate personhood. So I'm planning to do more with that subject with Dr. DeHart on a project that we've got going now. So those are the announcements. Georgia Ann asked me to let everybody know that she's okay. So and final announcement, I want to take another time here, a little opportunity to thank everybody once again, especially those of you who've made donations. That dear lady, you know who you are. And my prayer for you and your family, I hope you're doing all right. I watched the news over there with some concern. And the rest of you who've made donations, many, many thanks. For all of you new members on the website, keep bringing members so that we can make the website a self-paying venture. Anyway, what I want to discuss today are two things. Both of them are kind of related. I want to talk, last week I talked about Syria and what was going on there. I want to talk about Syria again, but in a very wide geopolitical context. Because as you know, President Vladimir Putin of Russia sent an op-ed piece, an open letter to the New York Times on September 11th, which was in itself a bit symbolic, obviously. And in the piece, he publicly stated his faith in God, which is well known in Russia, but not in the Western media. The Western media likes to portray him as some sort of neo-Stalinist throwback. I don't think he is, and I know this upsets many of you in Eastern Europe that have been complaining that he is an authoritarian. I've never doubted he's an authoritarian, but I think he's cut out of a very different piece of cloth than a communist apparatchik. But whether that be true or not, he chose September 11th to make a very symbolic gesture and plea to the United States to resolve the Syria issue peacefully and to involve the UN. Now, previously, the United States has gone to the UN for its sanction for its wars in the Middle East. Now the shoe is on the other foot. It's Russia calling for us to get a UN sanction and a UN brokered deal. Now, this is interesting because the backdrop I want to show you is why China's media is making a big play to control Africa's media. And this is a story that some of you sent me, and I'm grateful for that. And I think this is also part of the context in which we have to view things. If we look at what Russia has done, what Mr. Putin has done. This is a very, very clever, calculated move. I'm not saying that there's not sincerity behind it. I'm not saying that the Russians aren't genuinely interested in a peaceful settlement to this situation. I think they are. I certainly am. And from all the polling data, most Americans are as well. But let's look at what is really going on. I think the long-term goal of this Syria operation remains to isolate Iran for an ultimate move against Iran via proxies, via using some of these indigenous anti-regime groups that exist in almost every Middle Eastern state, Iran included. I think the ultimate goal is a similar destabilization of Iran, but they haven't been able to do that until they secure Syria, which is one of Iran's close allies in the region. Now look what Russia does by doing this. The United States cannot afford to look like a warmongering power, even though it appears that that's what the United States is. We've gone to war against no less than 8 nations in the last 12 years. That's how bad it is. I mean, that's a new record. But now, by Mr. Putin's call for a UN negotiated brokered peace, which the Syrian foreign ministers already agreed to the basic terms that Russia laid out, for this to happen means that the United States faces a very, very difficult geopolitical choice vis-a-vis its long-term goal, which is to remove Iran's nuclear program and hopefully that regime and replace it with a regime that is more amenable to the Western power brokers. All right. By doing this, Russia is throwing the card down on the table that that is something that we will have to do with Iran down the pike if we accept it here. But on the other hand, if we don't accept it here, we will stand revealed for most of world opinion as a unipolar power intent on projecting our own power and imposing our own will regardless of what the global community says. And the problem here, the if you will geopolitical hypocrisy, is that the United States is the power that basically drove the creation of the United Nations in the first place. And of course that dates all the way back to World War I and President Wilson and the creation of the League of Nations. So Putin has really called the game. He's really said, put up or shut up to the power elites of the West. Show us the evidence, bring it to the council. Here's our plan. Put all the Syrian chemical weapons under international control, dismantle them, and Syria's foreign minister has already said yes. All right. So the real game is now going to stand revealed. Do we go for that deal and hence for the idea down the line that we may have to do a similar deal with respect to Iran or not? But anyway, it's some very, very clever chess playing on Mr. Putin's part. Now, why did I show you this article about China making a big play to control Africa's media? Because I think this too is part of the geopolitical context. China, as you know, as I've been reporting here, has been moving into Africa in a major way, trying to build up a trading bloc, a trading partner in Africa. And I suspect that this is all part of the deliberate long-range calculation by the BRICS nations to build up trading partners for themselves, to strengthen their bloc by that means. In other words, China's really signaling something very subtle here. They're signaling that they no longer trust the United States as the major trading partner. They are trying through a long-term effort gradually to change that relationship. And this, I suspect, is also lurking in the background because the Middle East is the key strategic region for anybody wanting to dominate Africa. So China is playing the trade card in Africa against America's Afrikaan story. There's a lot going on here, folks, this week, and a lot to watch. Watch Mr. Putin very carefully because he did something in this letter that I think is very revealing. Did you notice that Mr. Putin, for the first time in the West, so to speak, came out of the closet. He admitted, more or less, that he does have faith. All right. Now, this is well known to the Russians, and it may be an example of yet another politician, so to speak, pimping God. Although, in Putin's case, I really don't think that's the case. So watch him very carefully because he's coming out of that calculating, analytical background of the KGB. And it's going to be a very interesting game over the next few years to see how the United States responds. Thus far, our solution in the Middle East has been covert action and bombs. And Mr. Putin has said, no, why not try this route? And folks, I'll go on record and say I think for once the Russians have the right idea, and we need to give them a lot of attention and serious consideration. And incidentally, this also comes after Mr. Putin very publicly stating that Secretary Ketchup Kerry was a liar for all of the so-called evidence regarding chemical weapons. And the Russians have been quietly putting out in the background that they believe that this was a false flag attempt to involve the United States in a provocation and military intervention. So this is very, very clever chess that the Russians are playing. Watch this game very carefully, folks, and the game in Africa over the next couple of years. All right, that's it for news and views from the Nefarium on this week, September 12th, 2013. I will see you all on the flip side, everybody, and God bless.